Hey everybody, Pat Benage here, the evolution coach, creator of the 6-Week Shift, the Inner Path, and author of this inspirational blog, SoulTalk. And lots going on in the world right now, especially in this country. And we have a couple of days from now, from when this comes out, we have the solar eclipse that's happening all across this country. Of course, it's not a unique event other than for the areas where it's happening. Solar eclipses happen all the time, but it sure generates a lot of anticipation, excitement, whatever. In my former home, just couple of months ago in Bend, it's Central Oregon's crazy right now. Oregon's anticipating, I think, somewhere around 1 million people coming into the area, since it's sort of the landing zone for the solar eclipse in this country. It starts on the coast of Oregon and comes all the way across the coast to North or South Carolina, that path of totality. Even here in Santa Fe, we're going to experience some degree of that eclipse. And I don't know what that means. I mean, of course, there's gravitational forces and different things that happen whenever you have a new moon, let alone a solar eclipse. But I don't put a lot of stock into what that means, because it's individual still. I mean, there's a general energy that's produced, but everything's always individually based. And how much or whether it affects you, that's kind of up to you. The other thing is that this country itself, there's a lot of, it has been for quite a while, but there's a lot of divisiveness still, and there's a lot of banter and rhetoric that's being thrown around, and mudslinging, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really pay much attention to it, but you can't completely avoid it and isolate yourself from it. I think it's good to be aware of things without being absorbed by them, without being too influenced by them, whether that's the eclipse or whether that's the political environment or the social environment or the economic, whatever, whether it's the drama within your own family, whatever that is, don't be too absorbed and too consumed by it. But it leads me into, and I took my first week off of SoulTalk in over 4 years last week. Whether you noticed that or not, I don't know, but it happened sort of by accident, and yet nothing's an accident. So just so happened that we had a storm down here on Friday, and it knocked my internet out until late on Sunday. And so it kind of just gave me the opportunity to not do it, to sit that week out. And originally I thought, okay, well, I'll just do the filming and the writing, and then whenever the internet comes back on, then I'll do that. But I just took advantage of the opportunity to take a break, and didn't know if that break would last more than a week or what would happen, but took that opportunity to take a break. And I think that's a good thing to do periodically. And it's been over 4 years, so maybe I was a little overdue. When we get overdue for those kind of things, then the universe sort of gives us an opportunity, sets us up with the opportunity to take that. And if we notice, if we choose to do so. And so I did. I just took the break, and it wasn't really until yesterday that I thought, okay, I'm going to get back into it this week. So here I am. And it's interesting. A couple of quotes, and I put them out on Facebook yesterday. But a couple of quotes came through for me in my contemplation yesterday that just were very strong indications of what I see, what I feel, what I wish to express. And I want to preface this with the notation that all that's going on out here, I see nothing that is wrong with it. I'm not making a judgment about it. I'm making an observation. I'm making some observations about what's happening and offering just my perspective. And that's what I try to do all the time. But the two quotes that came through for me, the first one was from the Gospel of John. I think it's 8:7, and it's where, and it's, you don't even know if this is actually what happened or if it was a story that developed later or what it happened to be. But Jesus was supposedly came upon what was about to be a stoning of some woman who was, I don't know whether convicted is the right word, but accused at least of adultery. And that was, at that time, in that place, punishable by death by stoning. And Jesus, according to the story, happened upon them and basically stopped it by asking the question or posing the thought that whoever among them is without sin, they should be, he or she or whomever should be the one that casts the first stone. And so essentially saying, if you're perfect, if you've not sinned before in your own life, then you might be qualified to judge and be judge and jury and executioner. And according to the story, then the whole thing broke up because everyone recognized that they had their own faults. So that was the first thing that came about. And the second quote that came to me was also one that there's no proof that this came from the source that's generally used, which is Gandhi. If you do a little research on this particular quote, there seems to be some evidence that it may have just evolved out of something that was written about Gandhi in biography that was written. And I can't remember the author off the top of my head. I think it was Stephen Foster or something similar to that. But the quote is that an eye for an eye, in the end, it only makes the whole world blind. And so this is, to me, between the two of these, it's the idea that we have to be responsible for administering justice. That we are somehow responsible for shaping the world in a way that is just from our perspective. And so what that then translated to me is that most of us, we have this thought, this idea about how the world ought to be. We have our ideal world that we picture in our minds. And then what happens is the world doesn't match that. You know, anytime you're creating that idea in your mind, you're comparing it to what actually exists, and you're saying, okay, it's not that way now, but this is the way it ought to be. And then we set about trying to make it that. We try to change the world. And our intentions are good, regardless of which side we're talking about. And if you get political about it, regardless of whether it's the conservatives or the liberals, the neo-Nazis or Black Lives Matter or whatever group, the individuals in that group, in those groups, have ideas about what they want the world to look like, how they want it to be. And if they take it to the extreme, then they think that they're entitled to, or even obligated, to do whatever they can to make it that way. And those that are in the way, then they have to be, they become then the judge, jury, executioner of that individual, because they're administering justice. Because they see that this is how it ought to be, and this other group doesn't see it that way, and so they've got to be taught a lesson. They've got to be shown the way. And, you know, I can hear each side now saying, yeah, and it's those guys that are doing that. Not me. They're trying to do it to me. And it's all of them. It's all of us. That anyone that sees the world and says, this is not right, and it needs to change, and we've got to do something about it. I've got to do something about it. You've automatically become that person who's now judge, jury, executioner, whatever. You're the one now administering justice to this world. And to be honest, straightforward, that's delusional. That's delusional. First of all, the world is perfect, exactly as it is. Exactly as it is, in every way. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not. Just because it doesn't fit your view, your thought, your idea, your ideal about the world doesn't mean it's not perfect. This external world, it's a process. It's a reflection of what's happening within each and every one of us. To go back to Gandhi, Be the change that you wish to see in the world. So if you want the world to be different, be different. And your world will be different. But don't expect that just by being the change that all of this will change. All of this changes all the time. But the only thing that you're responsible for, the only thing you're responsible for is your own perspective, your own attitude, your own view of life, your own actions, your own words, your own thoughts. Those are the things you're responsible for. You're not responsible for changing anything out here. You will change based on who you are inside and how you think, what you feel, what you do, what you say. All of those things will affect your world. But you can't manipulate the world to fit your image, your ideal. Nor should you, nor it will never work. It will never work. You cannot create your own utopia in the image that you believe it ought to be, because there's 7 billion plus people here that have their own ideas about that. You're never all going to agree. There might not be any of you that agree with me, and that's okay. I just see that it's delusion to think, if I were to think that I could somehow change the world in a specific way to make it what I believe is better, that's the epitome of egotism, to think that I've got that much. You know, we are powerful, creative beings, but we each are, and we all are, and we're all one, and we're creating this together, not individually. I express my own self in a particular way, and I have total control over that if I choose it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people abdicate, live by default. But if I choose to, I can control my own experience. I can control all that I express in this life. I can't control anybody else's. I have no control over anything else that happens. You know, that's one of the faults with the law of attraction people that teach it, you know, that you're going to be able to just do this and then you can attract this, and man, you don't have that much control. There's too many factors involved, too many variables, too many others. And yet, as I said, we're all one, but we're all creating this together in a way that will evolve the entirety. But you don't have an idea what that looks like. It's not what you think. No matter what it is you think, it's not what you think. It's not what I think. You know, I only have control over me, over my own personal evolution. That I have control over. I'm influenced by a lot of this stuff that goes on to the degree that I allow that to happen. But that's all part of the process. That's all part of the perfection of life, in that all of these things that are influencing me, that come into my presence, those are things that I'm getting the opportunity to experience so that I can evolve, that I understand my own self better, and then can express myself better. And again, none of this that I'm saying is a judgment on it. It's just an observation. It's just an observation that I see that, so many, they get so tunnel visioned on what it is, that how they want it to be, and they become convinced that they're right, that they have it right, and that it ought to be that way. And why doesn't everybody think that? And if you don't think that, then something's wrong with you, and we need to fix you, or put you out of your misery, or something. He'll lock you up, whatever. There's so much of that, and yet all of it is just to show us the nature of things, and give us an opportunity to transcend those parts of ourselves that we're still delusional about, to wake up. To wake up. That's what it's about. Everything is designed, all of the challenges in life, they're designed to wake us up. When we wake up, we recognize that there are no problems. That's our own thought about something. It's not a problem until we think it's a problem. And if we think it's a problem, then it becomes a problem. But in truth, it's not a problem. But you have to be awake enough to be aware, to understand that, to see that. And so life will bring things into your experience to wake you up. And those things most often are not pleasant. They're not pleasant. They're not happy things. They're not fun things. And we start out, all of us, seeing them as problems, and trying to fix them, and trying to fix ourselves, and all of this stuff. But eventually, it wakes us up. And when enough of us, because we are all one, when enough of us wake up, then the world will change. Not that it's changing all the time. It's always changing and evolving. But then it will change in that it will be less necessary for those challenging things, for those things that are perceived as problems. And we'll stop living in a problematic world and start experiencing life in a way that is perfect. And this is my vision of it. I can't say that it's an absolute truth. From where I am at this moment in my own personal evolution, it's what I see. And I'm not saying that that's the ideal, that's what we should have. That if you don't see it, that you're wrong. If you think it's something else, that you're wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that to me is the natural progression of things, primarily because that's been the natural progression of my own experience. And the individual experience is one that then gets reflected into the collective experience. But it has to be bit by bit by bit. And so as it reaches that point of critical mass, so to speak, then that experience will be more universal, and it will be then the exception that people will see the problems and experience the problems, and there will be more awake souls who can aid those not yet awake through that process. And so right now it perpetuates itself. Right now the problem, we just keep adding to it because we're trying to fix it. And by fixing it, we cause something else. We fix this and it causes this. And then we got to fix that and we cause 2 more issues. And it just grows and grows so that it's so complicated, so convoluted that we can't imagine, we can't imagine it being perfect. Yet, that's what it is. So, I know this is kind of a long one this week. Had 2 weeks to build up a little extra. So I hope this has been of some value to you. I hope it's opened your eyes a little bit. Maybe yours are much wider open than mine. That's certainly possible. But I hope that something in this has sparked an awakening in you. And it's all about living your life from the inside out, not the outside in. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week. Have a great day.